All right, welcome back to lecture number 53. Now we're talking about immigration and migration in the Gilded Age. Our theme is migration and settlement. And our learning objective for today is explain how cultural and economic factors affected migration patterns over time. So, first, the industrial workforce expanded and became more diverse through the internal and international migration. Here we have immigrants coming from Southern Europe seeking economic opportunities. So people from Italy, Greece, they were coming, about a quarter of them are birds of passage. That means that they have intentions of going back to their original country and using the money that they saved up in the United States and improving their lives there. Eastern Europeans were often Jews who were fleeing pogroms. In 1881, we see a rise of coordinated attacks against Jews in Eastern Europe. And these immigrants who are coming to the cities are often being used as scabs or strike breakers. So these are the people who management would call in anytime that the workers would start a boycott or a picketing or a strike. And to try and get the original workers to stop striking, they would bring in temporary workers who they would pay the same wage or lower, just to show the strikers that they are replaceable. We had Chinese immigrants in the West Coast. They worked in the railroad industry. Before they came to the United States, they most often had a labor contract already established before leaving China. And then at the end of that work contract, they had the option to return or to renew their contract. So migrants in the cities. As cities became areas of economic growth featuring new factories and businesses, they attracted immigrants from Asia and Southern and Eastern Europe, as well as African American migrants within and out of the South. So here's the big distinction with immigration in this period. This is what we call the second wave of migration. The first wave of migration, we've already talked about. It happened in the mid-19th century. It was mostly from Northern and Western Europe. And we see in the chart here, it had people from Ireland, Germany, the UK. Those were the bulk of people who were coming to the United States. We've talked about the response to their presence, how it led to the Know Nothing Party. They continued to arrive through the end of the 19th century, though they were being outnumbered by this second wave of immigrants. They are coming from Southern and Eastern Europe. So you see in the chart, you have Italy, Russia, Hungary, even Canada becoming a larger portion of immigrants in the United States. We still have African Americans who are beginning their migration out of rural areas into urban areas, but not at the levels that we're going to see during the Great Migration in the 1910s. Many immigrants moved to escape poverty, religious persecution, and limited opportunities for social mobility in their home countries or regions. So we've already talked about that Jews are escaping violence in the pogroms in Eastern Europe, Russia, Ukraine, Poland. The ones in Russia were caused by the assassination of Alexander II in 1881, and that was blamed on Jews, so it led to violence against them. The economic conditions in Southern Europe were poor and land was scarce, so Italian immigrants who were looking to buy their own piece of land at home did not have the resources, so they would come to the United States, save money or send money back in remittances, and then allow their family to buy that piece of property. So a lot of immigrants who came to the United States had every intention of returning. And finally, in 1892, Ellis Island opens up in New York City to receive new migrants, and it's also being used as a screening point. So as you see in the bottom left, you have people corralled through these gates, and now they're trying to make sure that those that are coming in are complying with the new regulations that have been passed throughout the 19th century as a response to populist sentiment. We're going to be talking more about this in the next lecture about the response to the increased migration in the United States. All right, urban neighborhoods based on particular ethnicities, races, and classes provided new cultural opportunities for city dwellers. So ethnic neighborhoods arose out of this new immigration. So the new migrants that would arrive would go to where other migrants from the same country had already settled, and they would help each other find places to live, find employment, and as each group gained economic advancement, the neighborhood's makeup would change as newer immigrants would take the places of the older immigrants, as the immigrants that had been there for several years are able to find better employment and live in better parts of the city. So there's pros and cons to this concentration. So you were able to retain cultural practices. It's easy to organize politically, especially if you're the Irish and using political machines, as you see on the right side. These political bosses were very often very friendly towards immigrants because they knew that eventually they would become voters and they would vote for the party that helped them, or they would vote for the party machine that helped them establish themselves once they reached the United States. A drawback to this concentration in ethnic neighborhoods is that they were often very poor, they were very crowded, the conditions were unhygienic. You see the images that Jacob Riis took of the alleyway, how there's clothes hanging from the windows, and everyone's dirty laundry is literally in public view. So this creates a negative perception of immigrants, and it's going to lead to another wave of anti-immigrant sentiment, as we saw in the mid-19th century. Suburbs at this time, they do begin to develop. They're rather small, but as rail service expands out of the city, those who are able to afford it are able to commute in and out of the city. All right, and that was it. Here's our recap. We have a second wave of immigration. They come from Southern and Eastern Europe. Immigrants from Southern and Eastern Europe often take up unskilled work in factories. Some immigrants from Eastern Europe, they had come with trades that could have been utilized in urban areas. And finally, new immigrants settle primarily in cities. They develop unique ethnic communities. All right, so thank you for watching, and as I said, our next lecture is going to focus on the response to the increased immigration in the United States. We will see you then.